Well, get ready to have an aneurysm, fellas, because behind me right now is the absolute cheapest 4K, 240Hz, 32-inch quantum dot OLED gaming monitor. That's right, the holy grail of monitors. Why is it so cheap? Well, it's because you can't upgrade the firmware. Now, that is a huge problem, and a ton of people have been screaming from the rooftops online that you should avoid this monitor at all costs. And you know what? Normally, I would agree, unless they nail the launch firmware. And did they? Well, let's go ahead and find out whether or not this is trash or a hidden gem by taking a very in-depth look at the monitor. So the MSI MAG 321 UPX, that's right. That is the monitor we're gonna be assaulting today in this review. And to do so, let's first go over the specs. Now, this is a 32-inch 4K 240Hz 16:9 quantum dot OLED V3 panel with an alleged response time of 0.03 milliseconds. Yes, it does support FreeSync and G-Sync, and it does come with a Display HDR True Black 400 certification. Now, the overall design, I would say, is actually really good visually, except for the very ugly cable management, which looks just god-awful. So please, MSI, what are you doing here? You gotta hide those better. In any case, it does support standard VESA mounts, and in terms of the ports, pause if you need to, but there you have it. Now, the price and the warranty. This comes in at $899, which is well below a lot of the other options that are going to be coming out. I mean, you look at the Alienware version, that one's around $1,200. You look at the Asus version, that one is also very expensive. So to be saving, $200, $300, $400 on this monitor, that is a huge deal and makes this far more accessible to a lot of PC gamers. It also comes with a 3-year warranty plus burn-in. So overall, the value here on paper is really, really good, but is it actually good, or is the firmware a mess and you'll never be able to fix it? Well, let's go ahead and find out. First, starting off with the color, and I gotta say, my first impressions on the color are, it is absolutely fantastic. We are talking about quantum dot OLED here, which is, in my opinion, the best technology on the market today when it comes to HDR color brightness. It is just absolutely amazing. You get super bright, super vibrant colors, which makes it, really, really awesome for HDR gaming. But what about the actual accuracy? And surprise, surprise, out of the box, well, the sRGB is not that bad. Now, it's not perfect, and I will have an ICC profile as well as the best settings for this display linked in my Patreon in the description below, which, by the way, also gets you access to the Discord. So I highly appreciate that and do highly suggest it for those of you out there looking for the best settings for this monitor. But moving on to the HDR performance, and here, wow, I'm shocked they actually nailed it. Not only is the color balance good, but it's also following the EOTF curve correctly in both the HDR 400 and Peak 1000 modes, meaning that, well, HDR scenes are gonna look how they should. It won't be over brightened, and there won't be any crushing or raising of shadows. So really good. And also the color volume is looking how it should, 104% roughly for DCI-P3. So really good stuff there. But what about the brightness? And I will tell you guys that since this is OLED, the per pixel local dimming allows for absolutely excellent nighttime HDR. But just like any other quantum dot OLED gaming monitor on the market right now, it just simply isn't bright enough for daytime HDR scenes and just lacks that punch, that impact that you get out of TVs. But again, that's a problem for all monitors at the moment. And I think it is obvious based on this chart here showing the peak HDR highlight brightness that this monitor can achieve. Yeah, it's not too bad. Sure, it's at the bottom of the list, but it's really no different than any other quantum dot OLED. But it does get absolutely slaughtered by a modded S90C TV. That thing is absolutely destroying it, as it does with every single other monitor. But what about the 100% window? This is very important for day-to-day actual work. 271 nits here puts it a little bit lower, but it is very respectable for an OLED monitor in 2024 and is certainly very usable for desktop usage. Also, What about an actual game? This is very, very important. In fact, this is the most important metric, in my opinion, of an OLED monitor today, and unfortunately it is once again technically at the bottom, but let's be honest, again, not really going to be noticeably different from any of the other Quantum.OLED monitors that I've tested thus far. And also, once again, the S90C TV is absolutely running circles over all these monitors, so hopefully they get much brighter with future revisions. Now, in terms of the latency, it is technically the fastest 4K I've measured thus far, so very, very good stuff there. Now, in terms of the motion performance, this is very important, as this is one of the main reasons you would buy an OLED monitor, and here it definitely shows. 240 Hz is absolutely insanely clear. Even 120 Hz, in my opinion, looks better than 144 on the mini LED on the right, and then at 60 Hz, it does start to get a bit blurry, so I would shoot for around 100 frames per second or greater if you're trying to run this display. Now, in terms of the text clarity and subpixel layout, this is definitely a big weakness for Quantum.OLED in general. As I've tested more displays, I've definitely started to like WOLED in this regard a lot more. There is a lot of fringing still. I know it's a lot less noticeable at 4K. It's not terrible, but it is noticeable still, and it does lead to a little bit softer image than what you would get on a WOLED and certainly on what you would see for LCD. But overall, not too bad. But what about the finish and perceived clarity? Well, I will tell you that the finish itself is a really nice glossy coating, meaning you're going to be getting very clear, very vibrant, very high contrast images, which is what I like to see out of premium monitors. However, this particular glossy finish, unfortunately, they light up magenta like crazy when presented with even a small amount of ambient light. So do be aware, if you want to get the full contrast out of these OLED displays, you absolutely have to be in a light controlled room. If you're not, you will be getting raised blacks and a magenta tint on your display. But that being said, I would still far prefer this over a matte coating, as LG's matte is incredibly grainy, incredibly oily looking, and really destroys the image quality in all lighting conditions. Now, in terms of the viewing angles and uniformity, it's Quantum.OLED, and all Quantum.OLEDs are basically perfect, so let's just move on. Now, the menu and firmware is basic, but I'll tell you what, it just works, and I found in my time using it over DisplayPort on PC, no issues. So yeah, this has been incredibly impressive, and I was shocked to find that there's basically no problems. It tracks EOTF correctly in SDR and HDR for the most part, and it also performs and behaves basically identical to more expensive Quantum.OLED monitors, at least from the ones I've tested thus far. So there you have it, guys. Overall, I'm gonna say, you know what? This monitor is a hidden banger. If you see this thing on sale, yes, I would go ahead and buy it. Of course, there's reasons to buy other monitors, to wait for other versions. Maybe they'll be a little bit brighter, doubt it. Maybe they'll have other features that you want, like black frame insertion or the ability to shrink the monitor. There's all kinds of various things that other monitors have that maybe this one won't, but this is a pretty dang good 4K 240 Hz OLED monitor that honestly delivers in pretty much every single category without any major flaws. They pretty much nailed the launch firmware outside of the sRGB just being a little bit off. So for that reason, yeah, you see this thing, pull the trigger and buy it.